And welcome to the Board of Selectmen October 3rd meeting. This evening we've opened the meeting right now, and we're going to move to executive session for the purposes of a collective bargaining negotiation, and upon conclusion of that, we will return to open session, and at that point, we will commence the meeting with the citizens' comments. So I poll for us to move to executive session.
Aye.
Aye. So
moved.
all in favor?
Aye. We did that.
Right, so we're now going to commence our executive session. All right.
It's all good.
So we have public comment now. We have resumed our open session. Any public comments, Kevin? You good? You don't have to say anything. All right, no public comments, so I'm going to move to item 1.1, which is appointments. So I have 2 appointments to make this evening. Actually, I have 3 appointments to make this evening. So the first one is the Historical Commission is requesting that we reappoint Jane Moore for a 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2020. And the Board of Selectmen is requesting that Mr. Jeffries be appointed to the Open Space Committee as the Selectmen's liaison for the 1-year term ending July 30th. And Mr. Jeffries, we would also like to appoint you to the newly created task force, which is being created to study the Hale Reservation CRs. Both the town of Dover and the town of Westwood are creating these task forces, and the task forces will come back and make recommendations to their respective board of selectmen. And Chris and I had a really good conversation with Amy Moot. The idea was to ensure that task force has representatives from each of the committees that should be involved in it, such as Open Space, Concom, Warrant has made one, the Planning Board. So it should really encompass most elements of the town.
Yep.
We're also looking for 3 citizen volunteers, so if anybody out there would like to be part of the Hale Reservation CR Task Force, please contact the Board of Selectmen's office and we will see if we can accommodate your request. So I guess I need a vote for the...
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, can we give
Thank
John
you.
more?
Do I have to vote? Am I saying this?
Can we
You
give him
did,
more
John.
than 2?
John, you just voted. So we're good.
Well, I think
He needs more.
the deck was stacked against me, Valerie. It's going to be good. We had the conversation on Tuesday night, so this is a very, very good thing. So
It should be a
It's right
very
up your alley. It's a good
interesting.
sign-up.
it is a good sign of
Right.
yeah.
So are you waiting for more people? Because we have other things we can do.
Why don't you go ahead, because
Okay, all right. So the next item of business is the Carroll Community Center update. So other than reminding people that we have a special town meeting on Monday, at 7 PM. Is there anything else you want to let them know, Mr. Springett?
We have a special town meeting on Monday, October 7th.
Yes, we do.
At Mudge Auditorium. Please come and get to vote your preference on what you would like to see happen with the Carroll facility.
And there is a mailing that's going to go out tomorrow.
It's out. I got it, it's in
You
home.
got it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, because I didn't get it. So there is a mailing that, there should be something in your mailbox. It's basically an executive summary
executive
on what we're going to be voting on.
Yeah,
All right.
that was
So-
pretty good.
Yep, so Mr. Dwelly,
Thank
have you
Madam-
been doing anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I caught him taking a nap the other day.
Doesn't even sleep at home.
He's here all the time. I see his car all the time.
Few items for the board this evening. So one is, as we get underway with the budget process for FY '21, capital budget requests are due to the committee in, I can't believe it, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, toward the end of this month, yes.
And so I've been meeting with the Board of Selectmen departments to review and discuss their capital requests, both for this upcoming year as well as 4 years out as part of a 5-year capital improvement plan. In speaking with the chair and in conversations with the full board during the goals discussion, one of the approaches, and this was also discussed with Barry as chair of the capital budget committee, one of the things that we're going to do this year is to provide the Board of Selectmen with the full slate of capital improvement requests so that you can see those the full set of requests that are in front of the town before you make any decision or recommendations on the Board of Selectmen capital requests. I think that'll provide the board with a good sense of what's entirely in front of the town to help you make a
More educated.
more informed decision. On
Informed, right, not
requests.
educated. We're slow.
So I wanted to let you know that that's underway. I've been meeting with the departments. The capital requests look good. There's nothing new that you haven't seen as part of the 5-year plan last year. But it's good for me to be able to have those conversations with the departments to get a sense on what's in front of us, because that does go into and relate to the board's goal of a capital, potentially a capital stabilization fund.
Stabilization fund, yeah.
So that was one item I just wanted to let you be aware of. So you should be seeing those capital requests in the next 2 weeks or so.
So that's from that's from us, from the Board of Selectmen's.
That would be the full suite, including the
Not
Board of
regional, right? You
Selectmen.
would see the region. You would see, will you see Chickering?
It would be everything that goes to the capital budget.
Everything that goes to capital budget. Because in the past, we were looking only at our budgets, and then we sent them to capital budgets, and then they make a recommendation, and we only really
Yeah.
vote after their recommendation. So instead of having that interim step and not really understanding
Yeah, no,
what the
I
full
get that.
picture is
Okay.
with respect to it, we thought that this would be a way to give us more information early, and, and then I can keep the committee apprised of the vetting that's taking place at the capital budget.
Yeah.
There are times, like the region usually gives us a preliminary read, and then they refine it later.
Yes,
And some departments are
So I
late.
thought, that was the question. I thought the region used to come in sort of in December.
They have a preliminary number.
do?
They do, but they never have the exact allocation, but it's a
They vote,
placeholder,
yeah,
right.
That's fine.
So the Assistant Town Administrator post is out and available, so anyone who may be watching this evening, if there's anyone you know, feel free to direct them to the town's website, where they can find the job description and an overview of the position. It's also been posted on typical places like the MMA website, which a lot of municipal management jobs are posted. It's on Indeed, LinkedIn, and a couple other local sites that are free to get it up there. So that recruitment will close October 21st, and then a panel of folks here in town will begin the interview process. Yes, sir.
Do you have others?
I do, sorry.
No, go.
We had a nice conversation with Colonial Water today. There's been a few service disruptions that have occurred in the past to a few to a few folks here in town, and it was a good opportunity for us to just get a sense of, kind of what's been happening with the system and kind of what the communication plan is moving forward. So it was a really nice conversation. I think we're going to work closely with the Board of Health and Colonial to have Colonial come in before the board to give the community really just an update on some of the things that they're doing to help improve their system, as well as to continue to communicate with the community when there are disruptions or when new things are occurring. So I think that'll be a good opportunity to hear from them, and a good opportunity for the community to hear from them on some of the things that they're pursuing.
We also talked to them about, their responsibility of communicating to their customers when they have violations of their permit or testing violations, and that wasn't our responsibility to do so, and that we wanted to understand what the communication plan was for going forward, because it was imperative that they communicate to their customers. They did introduce us. They do have a new representative that's in Dover. He's a water engineer. So we asked them to get their plan together, and Chris is going to coordinate either for our next meeting or the meeting after for them to come and discuss why we've been seeing disruptions, what they're doing to fix it, and how when there's an incident, like when they found the E. coli not at the water sites, but prior to it went through the testing, how they're going to communicate that to their customers
Sounds
in the future. Right. So they were open. I mean, they said, yes, they understood they violated their permit, but they're working on putting a communication plan.
How big was this latest? How many people were affected this last week or so?
They said it was, a dozen or so was their set, and it differed, which was interesting, but it was a result of a new SCADA system that they're putting in to be able to better report out. But unfortunately, as you, and Bob, I'm sure you know this, as you implement new technology, sometimes there are hiccups that occur.
It shuts
things
down.
That never happened.
Never.
And the issue they have is they can't reset things remotely. And one of their techs is an hour and a half away. So if he's on call and it goes down at night or in a weekend, it's an hour and a half before he can come into town to reset the system.
Management people issue.
Right. And them not thinking through, well, it shuts down, shouldn't we be able to remotely turn it back on?
And the last thing I have related to communication is I've set up 2 test official social media sites for the town, a Twitter account and a Facebook account. As we spoke, as the board laid out their goals for the upcoming year, communication was one of them. And as I've been able to spend some time in the community and gotten to know a lot of community members, folks have said, hey, why aren't we on Twitter? Why aren't we hearing news from the town on these tools? And social media nowadays really is a kind of core component of that suite of communication channels. So I shared those with the board. My recommendation before we move forward with that is for the board to adopt a policy just in terms of how those tools will be leveraged as communication tools, and then we can move forward with rolling them out.
One of the things I think that we really
So does this mean I have to get a Twitter account?
No, you cannot have a Twitter account. No.
John,
I have a Twitter account.
No tweeting.
No tweeting.
No tweeting after midnight.
I do not have a Twitter or a Facebook page. When our when our kids were at the age where it became a thing, they all said you cannot have a Facebook page. And I said, I don't want one. So, but what we need to do and what we will do is have a conversation about a communication effort that is combined. So it is a consistent
Whole town,
and well thought out communication protocol.
facts. It's not meant to be a blog.
Yes.
So it's just getting information out.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right.
And that's, some of those concerns, Selectman Jeffries, as you've indicated, address that in that policy. So perhaps if the board is prepared to put that the policy on the next agenda item, something that we
Yep.
can review.
That sounds like a good idea.
I'll be,
Thank you.
send it to me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, you won't be here? Okay.
You could always do it the one after.
Do you want us to do it the one after?
On the policy, yes, the policy one on the 31st. I think we're doing it the 14th, it's 31st, right?
30th. It's going to be a Wednesday then.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
So I got two things. So the,
Does it say Board of Selectmen's update? I don't think
no,
so.
This is a question, this is an issue for the town
I
administrator.
defer my time to Selectman Spring.
So, the contract to retrofit went out, was accepted, they have it.
Yes.
And then, do we know when they may actually,
Diana, I met with our IT coordinator yesterday. She anticipates that they'll be on site beginning next week.
okay.
That's
So
quick.
that's moved,
As my
that has moved. And then I think I heard that we were going to take a look at the Civic Plus
Yes, sir. Yes.
coming in,
At the next tab meetings.
which is.
Not this Tuesday, but the
16th or something like that?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay, so there's movement on both of those things.
So Civic Plus is the new
Well, they're gonna,
a potential
they're
new
going to, it's
website.
gonna be, they're gonna talk to them.
Right.
As we look at communication channels, website being a core component of that, the town is looking at options on how best to move forward with the replacement website. Yeah.
Right.
Will you just, 30 seconds to remind the people at home that what retrofit currently does for the town, and that this assessment that they're beginning, the scope of the assessment?
Yes, sir. So Retrofit is a firm that the town contracts with. They provide us with backup and disaster recovery, so that in the event of a cyber threat or if a server goes down, that all of our critical data is backed up and we don't lose that during that disruption. So it's very important. The town actually had an incident, I think about a year ago, where the network was offline for about
Yeah, I think, it was last spring, I
a few
think.
hours last spring.
And a ransomware incident as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and there was no loss of data because of that contract and that engagement. And so we are now contracting with them to do an IT, core IT infrastructure assessment. This really drives from the article that was before town meeting in the spring, which provided funds for us to be able to really take a 360 holistic broad view of the town's IT infrastructure and IT efforts, and make recommendations on moving forward and how we build really the most robust, responsive, and customer-friendly IT infrastructure here in town. So they're going to do a really great, quick impact 2-week engagement to do an assessment of all our underlying core IT needs: servers, computers, phone lines, Wi-Fi, network, all the
Security
core
as well,
IT, security, absolutely, yep. Give us an assessment on how that looks and recommendations for us for both the immediate future as well as things we should be thinking about up to 5 years out.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
So now we'll move back up the agenda. And this evening, we have friends of the Dover Greenway here. As many of the viewers know at home, for about, it seems like 10 years, but it's only been 2.5 years. The Board of Selectmen, along with FDG, have been working tirelessly to try and get a lease with the MBTA so that we can potentially commence construction of a rail trail. The process has been extremely challenging, very frustrating, lots of stops and starts. We've had a lot of community members, including Mr. Jeffries, reach out to contacts to try and speed things up, but it's really a frustrating process. And I understand that this evening you would like to come here and talk a little bit about potentially an alternative path forward. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys to talk about what you're thinking.
Right. Would it be helpful for us to all sort of identify?
Yes, that would be
that'd
great.
Kevin,
And do you want to sit close together, or you're not talking to one another?
Enough is enough, right? Yeah, that's up to
And there are certain things you just can't do, right?
We're close enough already.
All right, just
together.
thought I would offer, there are 2 other seats available there.
Or did you ride your bike?
That's why he's sitting there.
No.
So Kevin Van, 7 Pleasant Street.
Valerie Lynn, 14 Haven Terrace.
Alan Moss, Big Man. Mark Tony, 20 Brookfield Road.
You sure?
And Alan
I can vouch for
recently
that.
moved, so he's not exactly sure of the number, but.
Right.
Halfway up the hill,
Yeah, up and under.
half the,
Robin, I think you really framed it well. This has been a project now that we've all collectively been working on for more than 7 years. Along the way, we've had multiple votes. We learned about things that we didn't know much about and got smarter around them. And I would just characterize the last 7 years by one of collaboration. There were people who weren't in agreement, they gave voice. I think as a result, we've listened, and whatever happens moving forward, that'll continue to be the overarching theme. When we got together, we talked about creative community, and that will continue to be a guiding principle for us. But you use the word challenging, and we're at a place now, 2.5 years after the vote, and we had just for by way of institutional memory, we had a vote at town meeting, and that was followed up by a ballot vote, and both of them were overwhelmingly in favor of realizing the rail trail. And we made a commitment to collaborate with the Board of Selectmen, but the first step would be to sign the lease. That has proved to be complicated. We are, as a result of the promises that were made in town meeting, it's a very curated lease, unlike the standard lease that most towns sign. And so it just seems to be stuck within the MBTA bureaucracy, and we don't see signs of it being unstuck. But that's also in the context of a price tag that went in the range of $800,000 when we voted on this 2.5 years ago to now nearly $1.7 million. So this really turns out, this arrangement that we put together really turns out to be non-viable in terms of realizing the conversion of the MBTA rail to a trail. In that spirit, we thought we owed it to come before you tonight to talk through our thoughts about how to move forward. And that is that we continue collaborating with one another. I think the town expects that of us.
And I think the citizens and the sense of community that we've already created around us, there's an expectation that we continue to collaborate.
That's right. That's right. And again, the relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Friends of the Dover Greenway has only been very good. This is about a very difficult lease to get through the MBTA and costs that have skyrocketed. Our intention, therefore, is to think of alternative ways to realize the conversion of the MBTA rail to a trail. Specifically, and we're open to ideas, we'd like to move forward. We're a not-for-profit 501c3, and there is precedent for a not-for-profit signing the lease with MBTA. There is certainly precedent for not-for-profit supporting the efforts as we've committed to do.
Right.
So our recommendation or our thought really is that we would like to move forward by signing that lease directly with the MBTA. I think that does a couple of things for the town. Number one, it has been very clear to all of us that the town does not want to spend its own money on the realization of this rail trail.
Well, that was one of the things that we're
Right.
committed to, right?
Right.
That
Right.
particular
And you're
town
absolutely
meeting.
committed to that. And in fact, Bob, of all of the votes we've had 5.
Right.
There's only one that's been lost, and that it was one to allocate $50,000 for a study, which then later the Friends of the Dover Greenway raised the money for, and we did a study. So it's clear to us that that can't happen, and you're obligated, as you well point out. And then number two, the issue of liability.
Yep.
The town didn't want to assume liability. So this allows us to go ahead and make sure that those two tenants are sort of protected. But it also allows us to move more quickly. As a not-for-profit, we would not be subject to prevailing wage. Therefore, at a minimum, our understanding is that this would be at least 40% cheaper.
Correct.
And so there are all sorts of advantages that allow us to act more nimbly in this context. But it's fundamental that it happens in collaboration. And that's why we thought it was right to come here tonight to open this discussion up, to let you know that we intend to move forward in this direction and that we very much want to continue the collaboration because it's the right thing for our town.
So I really appreciate your remarks. I know firsthand how frustrating this has been. In the 2.5 years since we got approval for town meeting and we commenced negotiating the lease with the MBTA, a lot has changed as well. There is more of a precedent for nonprofits to enter directly into the lease. Also, Medfield is going to commence their development. I believe they may have already started of the rail trail, so our neighbors on either side will have developed their rail trail before we even have a signed lease or a lease that we've all agreed to that we're willing to sign. It definitely checks the two of the really important boxes for the town. That was not to commit town funds, and secondly, the liability issue. Those were two big issues, and those were issues that we had to work into this customized lease that we were going to enter into or trying to enter into with the MBTA.
But there's one other thing, though. It actually helps move, since the town actually voted for this a couple of times, your proposal actually helps us move in that direction and satisfy that request from the voters.
That's right.
You know, I frequently get emails, and I'm sure the other selectmen do, you know, why is this taking so long? I got an email from a young adult, you know, a school-age kid who was very frustrated, and he said to me, I don't understand, why are the selectmen not doing anything? And I had to try and write this uncomplicated response back to him, and I said to him, at the end, this may sound like a lot of excuses, so if you want to give me a call, I'm happy to discuss it in detail, because when I read back through it. But, you know, I can't emphasize enough how much we have tried to get this done. And I agree with Bob, you know, clearly there was enough sentiment in the town to want to get this done. And also, way back, we talked about the risk of anybody being able to come in and develop the rail trail. You know, this land does not belong to the town of Dover. It belongs to the MBTA. And now with Medfield and Needham having developed trails, we saw what happened in Weston, where DCR came in, paved it so it connected to its other two neighbors. So for us, I view this as a win-win, because we have a group of Dover citizens, and you have demonstrated all along how important the culture and the feel of Dover is, that will actually be in charge or will be the ones developing this, which I think is a really good thing for the town, because you know what all of our expectations are. So, you know, we should, well, I'll see how you guys feel about it, but, you know, the town, we would be willing to approach the MBTA with you if that's necessary to sort of pass the baton on who's taking the lead with the lease.
In terms of the next step, that's exactly the way we might like to proceed. It would be important for the MBTA to know that the Friends is in tight collaboration with the town, and that we're aligned around this mission. So that would be an ideal way to start this transition.
So I've said enough.
No, I think it's very, very clear. I mean, I think we did, I mean, I don't have all the history, I mean, but I know for the time I've been on the board.
So your loss of hair has nothing to do with this?
That's the Carol related.
That's all.
I mean, to me, it's very straightforward. I mean, the voters spoke, they're in favor of the idea, we tried like heck to make it happen, and we just ran into impediments and obstacles along the way, and that this is the way to clear the brush and make the trail happen collaboratively. I mean, I think that is a win-win.
Yeah. The only thing to add to that, Kevin and Mark and Alan and Valerie, we've had so many discussions about the process of discovery through this whole journey. We began the process with a set of guidelines, and the guidelines that we had to work within, and to find, quite literally, find the right people. You know, which Robin alluded to earlier. We had to do that. So now that we know that, the institutional knowledge learned is going to really be a benefit, I think, to everybody going forward, because we've got the ability to bring the parties together collectively to say, here's what we're going to do to the town as a whole, for the town as a whole. So I think that's a critical component, because what happens is, if we don't do that, think of the alternative. If we just decided to stop, that doesn't prevent someone else from completing the process that's very different than the way the voters want it, and the way that you've envisioned, and the way that we've been tasked with what to do.
And we also know from the grant process that what's driving this is a desire by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to link all of these trails together. So the more trails that get developed around us, the higher the probability that some outside group will come in here and develop our section of the trails to connect to Needham and Medfield.
We talked about, Marco, 2 years ago, about how Weston had abandoned the process at one stage to realize someone else came in and paved part of the trail. That was just something that they were horrified over. So in an effort to prevent that, that's something that we can do. Where we can't promise the voters that that's going to happen, because we just don't know where it's going to go from here, but we certainly know from a discovery standpoint how we got to where we are. And then, Kevin, as you alluded to, as you said eloquently, we can now navigate where we're going from here a whole lot better together than we can individually.
You know, there's also been a precedent in the town for doing projects with private organizations that have been really successful, such as the town worked really closely with the boosters on the turf field, and that was a huge success. And again, it was less expensive for the boosters. They didn't have to pay prevailing wage. You know, we worked closely with them on permitting, and they abided by all the rules and regulations. So there's a precedent that's been set already. So, you know, my take from this discussion is, you know, we will help you move forward to the next step. You know, you can contact Chris, and we can coordinate a call with the MBTA to begin the discussions with them. But we appreciate you coming in here, and you know, at this juncture, I think it does make sense. It's just been awfully challenging, a lot more challenging than I ever expected.
Well, we're committed to it, and while I think, like anything, you know, you start off and you don't really know how high the mountain is. That was my experience in medical school and residence.
Yeah, law school too, yeah.
Law school, right? So
Business school.
But you climb the mountain, and so we are committed to this project. I think it's worthy. I think it's going to be really good for our town, and we are a Dover-friendly group, more than any other group could ever be. So thank you. We appreciate the collaboration. I will take the opportunity to welcome Chris Llewellyn. Welcome to Dover. Friends welcome you.
Thank you.
Grab your shovel. Let's get to work on the rail trail.
I was going to say, this is not going to be free, right?
But thank you. It's been a long process, but it's been a good one.
Well, we've learned a lot.
Yep.
That's for sure.
So I guess I'm hoping that we can re-tee this one up and get it going in the right direction. And on Monday, we can get a direction from the voters about what they would like to do with Carroll, and we can that's a 20-year saga. We can get that one going.
And then we can all retire.
Well, we expect to invite you all to cut the ribbon.
Yeah.
2 ribbon cuttings. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thanks.
And so now we're back to our final item, 5 minutes
much
ahead
right
of
on time.
schedule.
Pretty much
We
right
started
on
late. And so we're going to take care of the consent agenda. So the first item in the consent agenda is to approve the collective bargaining agreement between Dover and the Laborers Union 1116.
Well,
Did we make a motion?
Oh, no, we don't have to vote
Or you
because
would
it's all
just
part
vote
of the
whole thing,
consent.
right?
Yeah, so as long as
Okay.
the items are listed as they are on the
Okay.
agenda, you can actually just move the entire consent agenda as a motion.
Right, so I'll just list the items. The
Yeah.
other thing is our 2020 holiday calendar. We have some special licenses, and then to approve the August 14th and September 5th open session minute
So
meeting.
moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will,
Gotta do the adjournment.
right, well, first of all, I would like to remind everybody, even though Mr. Springett eloquently reminded everybody, that there is a special town meeting on Monday night at Mudge Auditorium, 7 PM. If you get there early, say around 6:45, you could probably get home in time to watch Monday Night Football.
Or you can take Monday Night Football and watch it on the recording. It's way faster.
Right, so you would not have missed anything. So we really do urge you all to attend town meeting to help us understand what the path forward is for the Carroll Community Center. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Oh,
And at the town meeting, there will be a packet of material that should be available for people to pick up. And the material, it's an executive summary of what the committee found, similar to what was in the mailbox, or soon to be received, and 20 frequently asked questions that we had put together based on the 6 or 7 open forums that we held for voter information. Make sure you get a packet that contains a great deal of good information that will be going over at the special town meeting. When?
Monday night,
Monday night,
6:45.
6:45.
Don't be late,
Can I mention one other thing that is actually in our consent agenda, but
if you have to.
Yeah, can we stop you?
It's critically, no. Yes, you can.
Are you going to tell us you got invited to something?
No, we didn't get invited again, but
That would have been worthy.
on the 19th at Powasset Farm, there is a charity event for all of the runners, participants in the event. There will be beer served by local craft breweries,
Oh.
new local craft breweries, which is...
Place in Medfield?
Is this the trail run?
This is a trail run.
Ah.
Yeah, on the 19th. So oftentimes in the consent agenda now doing this, which is really, really a lot of fun because Bob doesn't have to read all of the events that we don't get
We
invited
put
to.
it in the consent agenda because John was taking way too long, and the meeting went on 15 minutes more than it needed
And he
to.
would weep because he didn't get an invitation.
So we
I take it personally if I don't get invited to these events. It's bad for my...
Self-esteem?
Self-esteem is... waning.
So now can I
Thank you. Thank you
make a
for
motion
indulging.
to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all and see you Monday night.
Thank you, Madam Chair.